Hello ladies and gentlemen, Dave Dobbs here. It's the 23rd of December 2022 and I've got you here again on this on the shot that World of Signs posted on the 24th of November 2022, and I thought that's a good place to start this video because that was the main focus really on the last video I made, showing that this thing was clearly on the ecliptic, and you can see the tail of this somehow involved in this whole thing just arriving here. And you know, not to suggest that all this is the same tail, you know what I mean, but I mean I just don't know, that might just be total coincidence as well, you know. But the fact that this object eclipsed the sun, and it wasn't the moon. And there's a spectacular array of shots that I'm going to bring into this video, which is going to corroborate everything that I said was going to happen. I don't know if you remember, I said that if this happened, then obviously it was very likely that the big volcanoes near the ecliptic were going to go bang, and Hawaii went bang, and you know, the big volcanoes on Hawaii, Mauna Loa and Kilauea. And then we've had all the other things I said that they would stop pretty soon after, because this thing would be obviously crossing the ecliptic plane, so they're not going to stay long. It wasn't like last year, you know. We got 2 flybys this year. Remember, we had 2 flybys last year, back to back. You know, starting with the kind of the Icelandic volcano in kind of late March time. Very late March time, so we were ahead of that object and moving ever further away from it, but we were remaining close proximity to it. And I'll come to that in 2 shakes. But then we had the La Palma volcano. As soon as that one finished, around about August, the next one started, and that was this flyby here. Different objects. This is, if you let's bring it back to the idea that this is Pluto, and it's five moons. And this is one of its moons, and it has another 4. These 4 moons have been interacting with us, and we are in the midst of this flyby here that's just crossed the ecliptic in late November, and let's go briefly to my model. Let's just go to the naked model without any overlays, and even this isn't incorrect, but gives us an idea that this thing's been coming, or the objects coming off Pluto have been coming in and affecting Earth, and I try and build it out to this model here, where we see the interaction of these 5 objects coming from Pluto's orbit, and 3 of those objects coming right round our sun. They've become so close. And let's come to there's so many corrections I need to make to this model now, because I built this model in 2020, and much of it is absolutely correct. Like you see Kerberos and Charon, they're coming in. We're having all the evidence of those coming in, plus a 3rd one. And or possibly not, maybe it's getting a lot of confusing data, but those 2, the pair that I call in this, Kerberos and Charon, obviously named after the moons of Pluto, they're definitely coming in. They are 1 month further back than they were last year. And next year there'll be next year there'll be, if you like, 1 further month back than they were this year. But so this is that point. This is that point where they align, and but where we see, can you see what I call Europa? Now, why do I call it Europa? Europa was the biggest moon or is supposedly the biggest moon of Jupiter, and you know, it's the one that Galileo named. And you know, Charon, ironically, is the biggest moon of Pluto. And it's if you can see how you're all being played here in this game, these two are actually the same thing. This is the big blue thing that orbits. This is Pluto's biggest moon, basically, and it's what it's all been really, because all these objects are orbiting a red dwarf planet that we very rarely see, and we very rarely have a view of, but we have a view of this blue planet that orbits this red dwarf planet. And so we assume that the blue object we see is always Pluto, but in actual fact Pluto is not the blue object at all. It's a very dark object that is very, very difficult to see and very rarely comes into sight. It's the red Kachina. It's not Planet X itself, as in our sun and Pluto, if you like, orbiting Planet X here. It's this red dwarf planet and this and our sun seem to orbit Planet X. Our sun goes round 6 times in 1800 years, and this object goes round 5 times in 1800 years. This Pluto object goes 5 times in 1800 years, and every 84 years we reinvent it. Well, that, and just coming back to now, and this flyby we're experiencing right now, because as I go through the if I go back to, I need Europa coming in. There it is there. So, and there's Earth there. Can you see Europa here and Earth here? This is 2018. This was the big flyby that I predicted that really put me on the map. This was when it was absolutely massive. And so that's why I timed it at that point, because we knew about that. We'd seen it coming in over from 2011. We'd watched that specific flyby, and we'd seen the pair. Obviously, Becky Lewis caught a massive shot of the pair in March 2016. And I said, look out for what I was assuming was this shot coming out the other side, as if coming in at this point, coming into the sun, because I assumed at this point it was coming in, and then at Becky Lewis's point it was where she caught it on the 28th of March 2016. I said, look out for it, is the exact 200 days after the previous, and that's all I knew about these things at that stage, is every 200 days we had a flyby. I had no idea that these 200-day flybys all navigated themselves around ultimately four twin tail objects, and or really for us it was 3. It was Charon and Kerberos, the pair, and this Europa, and I had to amalgamate these because I had no idea. This was early days in the research, just this 200-day anomaly, and but if you see this one coming, Europa coming in there and going out, I can maybe just, it comes in and it goes out. It doesn't come round our sun. It's not reaching it's what I would call a perturbation of its orbit round Pluto. It's being pulled in as if it's going to go round, but it doesn't quite make its way round because there's not enough gravitational energy from the sun pulling on it. Its bigger gravitational primary is Pluto. And that's a very, very difficult thing to understand, that Pluto is a much heavier thing than our sun. Our sun is hydrogen, the lightest atom in the periodic table, going into helium. How we could expect it to be the big gravitational primary of all these dense things all around it is absolutely ridiculous. And so that's where we are. That's when I made this model, I assumed that every year this was also dropping back. And I was wrong. I was wrong. And what it is, if it's done anything, it's kind of stayed the same. We've carried on seeing massive seismic activity around the kind of December time. We've seen incredible sightings of this thing, all the way through. It was really possibly because of, in 2018, on the 28th of September 2018, and at that stage, my old kind of like ideas of anything linked to any kind of heliocentric model died in 2018, because the crazy shots we got, as I say, in June the 17th, 2018, ironically posted again by World of Science, his epic shot, plus Kilauea going off. And there was nothing in my model that could allow for Kilauea to go off, this long duration volcano, and yet there it was going off. And of course I would have to account for that. And so it just brought an end to my old model. I said, well, look, we've got these patterns going on. They don't take this. Just because I throw a model at these and I manage to ascertain a load of different flybys, it doesn't mean that model is correct. It means I'm ascertaining a pattern. And if that model that I've built to demonstrate how that could work ceases to work anymore, then I have to go on to develop something greater. I have to evolve my understanding. And so it pushes us into a much bigger kind of conundrum of just like, come on guys, we've got to accept that we're getting somewhere, but now we've got to break it down and see if we can evolve our shortfalls in this model. And that's what's led to this model. And this model now needs upgrading very, very slightly, but it's still, when you start kind of changing all this, just this part I'm showing you of Europa, realizing that this thing has pretty much stayed parallel to us, and these objects have mimicked Jupiter. And I'm only giving you this little overview here because I'm about to blow you away with what this shot means that was just being posted 4 days ago by Mr. MBB333. And he's kind of assuming that these objects have kind of punched through the atmosphere and are just somehow sitting there. And possibly they are, but I'm telling you that when you're in this situation here, Earth is going around here, going off this direction. This object is coming in, doesn't quite go round our sun and comes off and goes around here. They're travelling at the same speed. They're travelling at, these things are basically travelling at 67,000 miles an hour. At this point in their orbit round Pluto, we're all running parallel. This is what I'm showing you is coming. This is why we get these peculiar, slow-moving objects coming in at these obscure times, and they're just sitting parallel to us. You remember, I haven't got it lined up, but I should have had it lined up, and maybe it will turn up in some of my shots at some point here. But Wrap the News posted that shot in December 2018, ironically, as well, showing these asteroids, thousands and thousands and thousands of asteroids, and they're just rolling in space, running parallel to us. Literally rolling in space. They're just like a sea of them. Elon Musk could not send sufficient rockets to deal with those when those come close to us. Remember, they're not planet destroyers. They're moving at the same speed as us. If they come through, they haven't got the power to smash through our crust. They've just got the power to create kind of like what I call, like, I'm of a mind that the Tor, because of the iron oxide that comes out in the white water well, the Tor itself, and you see the landscape. When you stand on the Tor, you see the landscape, and it's like you're in a basin created by what feels like a massive asteroid that's just dolloped down on the landscape. And it's this rival of this big celestial object. And that's what that's really I'm of a mind the Tor is anyway, and that's what I feel is going to arrive in this, and that's what I feel this thing is here. These are here. And if you remember, ironically, third phase of the moon posted that shot on February the 2nd, 2021. Now this I'm of a mind is the it's very confusing, because this is the three that are coming in. This is the three, if you like, that are coming in now. And then we saw the same thing, like coming round. No, it's February the 2nd. So we're talking about January the 20th being the kind of like that. It's a fundamental corridor for when we're close to this objects that don't quite get pulled in right round our sun and come in around the kind of like in September time, to September the 28th, 2018. That's when I say, you cannot tell me there's not going to be oceanic anomalies. I said, I'm truly beginning to struggle with understanding what's happening in our solar system, and unless I get a window on this. But that's when you see that I say, but you cannot tell me there's not going to be oceanic anomalies. Krakatoa, which has just gone off again, ironically now, just goes off 2018. The caldera walls collapse because obviously the magma is pulled up so high. It's not like a super high Strombolian eruption, or even super high. The magma comes up, it fills the caldera, because it's the close proximity of this thing coming in. It pulls on the magma of this earth. It fills the caldera. The caldera cannot take it, so the caldera collapses, just like what happened the other day, literally, with Stromboli and Etna. And we get these tidal wave kind of effects. But then, on the 28th of September 2018, the caldera fills, the caldera walls collapse, and a tidal wave is created. And that's where you see the man bareback riding the roof of his house in a liquefaction earthquake, being overtaken by his neighbouring hills. You actually see the pylons on the top of the hills overtaking him, and he's on the remains of his house in this liquefaction earthquake, riding the roof of his house into an incoming tsunami. And I'm like, so you cannot tell me. I made the video before, I say, you cannot tell me. We've just watched these patterns since 2011, since we've been right next to this, as all of these objects have slowly come to the ecliptic plane since 2011. Basically, 2011 marks the closest point, because we go back to the date calculator, March the 11th, 2011. You had your 12 years. Let's just keep it down to 12 years, not 11.89 years. The official point of Jupiter, which is what I ran you through last time. Let's run it through just 12 years, because that is the flybys that we see with the pair. And so we saw it in, we see this reoccurring pattern, and it goes right back to 1903, and of course this is a pair, and you take the previous pair, the previous of the pair, you know, you go to 2011, March 11, 2011, you have Fukushima. 3 nuclear reactors go back. All those people that have kind of charted this as a celestial object, they've all our history got wiped out by the Catholics who built this new Gregorian model over this Julian model and built it in 1582. They launched it in 1582. We didn't, you know, in Britain and America, we didn't get it till we didn't change to the Gregorian calendar until 1752. But so all of our dates. So we would record the massive tsunami that happened in 1606 on the 20th of January. Ironically. Remember Carlos Ferrada's massive prediction on the 20th of January, 1939. Of course, 1939 will obviously appear here because we go back to these 84 years. 84 years, you know, ironically, the 20th of January, 2023, that will be exactly 84 years. You know, these 84 years when we reinvent a new dwarf planet. And so we go to that 11th of March 2011, the day Fukushima went bang. We go back 1 year and 12 days. We come to, you know, when the big Icelandic volcano went bang, shut down all the European air travel, and then we go the day after, the 27th of February 2010. We have the 8.8 in Chile. And the reason I'm bringing you these dates from this perspective, instead of the 11.89 year perspective, you know, it's just the deception of Jupiter, and how Jupiter is this massive deception. You know how, you know, let's keep going with this because I'm going to blow you away in a shake. So this shot came in as well. This was, I think it was early December, but it's me from Mike's. You know, just showing you these objects basically coming through, but just running parallel with us basically, and barely having any real capacity to enter into our system at that point. They're just literally running parallel with us. We're going to talk about this in this video. I'm going to talk about, you know, this from the is it Peiken Museum, and it's just, you know, mud flood mysteries. These things that were dug up in I'm not too sure where artifacts, Tartarian ancient technology and artifacts found around the perimeter of the city left after the last mud flood. Does it say where? Maybe someone can see that. I haven't got my best glasses on. Anyway, that's the name of the. I don't want to say where it is. But some of you might be able to see where that is anyway. But I think it's kind of Eastern European, very close to Russia, maybe quite close to the Med. That kind of like, you know, I'm not too sure really, but we're gonna talk about that because we're going to bring this chap into this discussion as well. Jason Breshears. I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name correctly there, and if Breshears, if I do apologise if I've pronounced that wrong, but he runs a channel called archaics.com, and he has this fascination with the date 1902 because of the massive amounts of red dust that fell. He's talking about, you know, thousands and thousands and thousands of tons, millions of tons came down from the sky in April 1902. Now, if I come back to that date and I talk about the pair that do I need to just, if I just come back to, remember that if we come back to 2023 and we see the pair Kerberos and Charon. Now I've got to go back to 2010, 11 before they are syncing up again. And then I got to go back to, this one doesn't go back to that far, unfortunately. This was the only one I did the overload. But you'll understand that I could go back to 2000 and to 1902, and we would have the same thing. I haven't got the proportions of this exactly right. This was the first time I'd begin to really, I'd done these two running, just holding them next to each other, and hadn't built this whole model. But this was the first time I'd actually managed to get this whole idea into a single model to kind of demonstrate that. But you can imagine in 1902, this would have been the first time that we would have been close enough that the pair did a very long flyby to our sun and did a loop round that would have been the first time that they did the big loop, but they would have come underneath, which means that they, it would have in 2000 and in 1904, in 1903, 1904, they would have been coming in the if you like, in the February March position. You think about the only angles that they would be able to come in on. There's fundamental during this point in our times. There's only fundamental entry. There's only one fundamental entry corridor. From now, Galileo's time, our time, Pluto's time, our time, where this system has been sitting, there's fundamentally things coming off this system. There's only been one fundamental corridor open for things coming off this system. They've even been coming from above or below, depending on whether there's been above or below the ecliptic plane. And so there's only one fundamental corridor. But because they're coming in above and below, if they're coming in directly from the ecliptic, then it's going to be February, March. But if they're coming in for above or below, they're coming at a different angle. Because up here, at this point, our sun was below the ecliptic plane of the Planet X system, and these objects were dropping down to us. Now we've crossed the ecliptic plane and we're rising up in the ecliptic plane. These objects are going to now have to ascend to us to go around us. And that's the change we've just crossed. We've crossed over like 2018, 2019. We crossed the ecliptic plane. We arrived to the point of crossing in 2011. This is where, all the 2012 prophecy began. This is we saw 3 nuclear power stations go bang. We saw the biggest, most fantastical, planetary crossings. We've had five planets coming in and going out from this object every year. That's 10 flybys a year we've had going on through this whole transit. And they started in 1902, I'm of a mind. And this is the big, I'm of a mind that this is the this is the big 1902 reset that that Jason, is it Jason? Did I just say that? I hope I just said his name right there. Yeah, Jason Breshears is, you know, and there's many ways of seeing this. He isolates he isolates 138 years cycle. And look, I'm going to talk more about him. Let's just keep keep going with the sightings that we saw. So we saw, you know, Mr. MBB 333 also posted this, saying that there'd been all these sightings of this object, the one I call Europa in my model, coming in. This is us running parallel to it. Just say, you know, that was posted on 5th December. Just, you know, and just Semra, I said, you know, you're going to see the big volcanoes. You're going to see the big Hawaii volcanoes. They're going to stop. They're not going to run for 4 or 5 months. We did that. We've done the long duration. We've done the absolutely running level with us on the ecliptic plane. Remember, where all these objects coming in and coming around and running parallels with us on the ecliptic. That's done. Now they're coming from below us. Well, I can't say that. The system is, if you like, we are ascending through the Planet X system, and so everything that was going one way is now going the other way. And so it's all just basically everything that's occurred over the last 100 years now runs in reverse. Basically, everything runs in reverse. So the big 2017 flyby. Look, there's the world of sign shots that I was actually looking for all along. The one that destroyed my model. The one where that was, you know, I was the most widely watched kind of Planet X kind of like video maker for a little time. I had a lot of people's attention with the Dobbs model until this shot came in and it destroyed the original Dobbs model. The heliocentric model that I built, this model here, I spent so long building. Well, this was an attempt to try and correct this and try and bring it in, but it was just like, oh guys, you know, how can we have the sun in the center of this model anymore? You know, my last ditch attempt to have it, and it was just failing miserably. And it was just like, I haven't got answers. And isn't that funny that we just I wonder if I ever can find, you know, the big one that really, you know, the one that sometimes I see it in here and I look for it, and most times I can't seem to find it, I'm afraid. But the one I always tend to post it up once or twice of the shot that Alex Luhan posted on the 1st of September 2019, which changed everything. And it was I'm so sorry that I'm just adding a load of data there that's just confusing the thing, but it basically absolutely was irrefutable. It was showing this object coming in and going out here, and it was arcing off around here, and when we got it, it was fine. I said look out for it, and we saw it, and we saw the whole tail, and we realised it hadn't come in and gone around the sun at all. It had come in as if it was going around the sun, and then it had just carried on and gone out again. It was orbiting something over here, something dark, and we couldn't see it, like whether you want to call it a dwarf planet or whatever it was. It was anyway. Let's just come back now to. I'm going to lose my thread. But when I said that this thing was crossing the ecliptic plane, now we'd done all the long duration volcanoes. We'd beat even Galileo's long duration volcano last year. I said that is done. Kilauea, Mauna Loa are going to stop. I guaranteed it. And I said then the big Indonesian ones. I said TAR would go off and the big Indonesian ones. Didn't I literally say that? And then Semeru went off, as I told you would. Then you're seeing a massive change in Mauna Loa. I said it's going to go. It's going to stop. And then all Hawaiian volcanoes stopped exactly as I told you they were going to go. Now, remember I talked about Schumann resonance going crazy, where all the outside electricity all around you is higher than what is in the batteries in that clock now. The Schumann resonance is making all these clocks. Brandon Corey Nagley put it up and said, look at that, all of these clocks are going backwards. They're going backwards because the power's being pushed into the batteries. This is kind of like when you see earthquakes going crazy, you'll see all the footage goes green and pixelates and all this sort of stuff. That is because the surge in electricity is resisting the power being pushed out of the battery, and everything, all the circuitry goes a bit odd. That's literally what's happening right now. We're coming close to that point now. Then 2 megavolcanoes exploded in South America, Chile and Ecuador, and then Chile, just in the same sequence as what happened in, remember, 2010, 2011. It goes from north to south. This is going from north to south, doing exactly what I'm telling you it's going to do, as I've told you for so many friggin' years. And then Taal volcano goes bang. It's just like, guys, exactly the volcano I told you that would go. And I'm not trying to be clever here, but unless we put our money where our mouth is and we actually say what's going to happen and make predictions based on mathematical sightings and patterns and models that we build based on sightings and real occurrences and seismology and all the volcanism and all the storms. Can you imagine how many storms are going to, can you imagine how much snowfall? This is going to come out in snowfall, guys. This is massive amounts of moisture going to be coming up from the oceans. And they're going to hit these massive cold fronts. They're going to hit all these particles from all these volcanoes. We're talking about mega snow. It'll come down and rain. If you're lucky, you're going to get rain. But if it's rain, it's going to flood. But look at that. That was on 12th December. Exactly what happened with Krakatoa in like I say, on the 28th of September 2018. Ironically, on the full moon. And so, but exactly what I told you is going to go off. Now we're getting, see, this point. I've got to try and remember where that was. This point is alignment. You remember the moon's going round the earth, but the big raising up of the ocean happens with the alignment of the moon, the earth, and the sun. This is not the moon. This was not that point. This is the alignment of this object, our sun, and the earth. So we get all this excitement and all this stuff. But this is like, imagine the hands of the magnetic or electromagnetic or gravitational hands of the sun reaching out, holding earth in the sun's shopping bag, and suddenly this thing drops in the sun's shopping bag, or the moon drops in the sun's shopping bag, and it has directly a massive effect on the shopping bag. The sun has the earth in directly. It is about this ratio that is being affected by this object. Now we come to proximity effect of this object directly affecting Earth. That is what's happening right now. And so this is why these big volcanoes are starting to go off. It's not the objects coming, it's not the pair coming in. They are coming in, they're getting bigger, but that's not going to start until kind of like until January, until mid to late January. And we're going to be getting, then we look at these two earthquakes going off at the same time, Mr. MBB 333 saying, look guys, these earthquakes in California happening at the same time, occurring the same. It's like this is mirroring itself. Guys, this thing hasn't been getting further. We've been running the same. This has been running consecutively with us since probably 2011, probably longer. Huge fireballs. I said, guys, you're going to start seeing huge fireballs. If the fireball comes down, the person's holding the meteorite in their hand. I said, you're going to see these things. They're not going to burn up. They're not traveling fast enough to burn up. And there we go, that shot of it. And obviously, Brandon Corinagli, he posted that on the 19th of this, so that's just come in. So I just thought, and then a monster awakening, unexpected eruption of Anu, Anak Krakatau. Is it unexpected, guys? Is that unexpected? This same pattern that we're seeing, this whole thing just going on, and so, and look at this, BRICS top banks just sold off entire US assets to collapse US economy. Is that how true that is? I don't know. That story was posted 2 weeks ago. I wouldn't be at all surprised. That was an interesting quote. I just brought that quote up. We might come back to that, but it was just a reminder in case anyone hadn't ever seen that. I'm just trying to remember the name of the guy that posted it. It's like, oh my goodness me, I haven't seen his channel for so long. It's like Gregory Isaacs or something like that. I can't remember. He posted it anyway, but he took pictures of it. He said, in the quote, it was a New Horizons team member that was in an interview with The Verge, and they said, we can take pictures of Eris even though we're further from it than we would be if we'd stayed on Earth. Remember, they sent their New Horizons out to, supposedly, I think, to Pluto. But we're looking at it from a unique angle you could never see from Earth because Earth is so close to the sun. So they're going away from this massive thing that's so close to Earth that we can't see it because it's hidden by the sun. That's what they're saying in this. That's what he's openly saying in this. That was on one of the... That was one of our videos, and so I just wanted to remember I was just showing that my old models, showing how I was trying to get Planet X over the top of our sun, and in the classic kind of models, and I was struggling with it to make all the timings, and so this was the big upgrade back in. This was 3 years ago. What date was that exactly posted? That was May the 15th, 2019. Opening it up using Nassim Haramein's ideas of our planet moving down its own axis in terms of the sun direction moving down or north or south, depending on how you see it, of its own axis. That it didn't move out across the ecliptic. It moved up or down, and all the planets kind of trailed behind. And the Planet X had come in through this and out like this. And this was obviously a 2019 desperate attempt, still trying to kind of grapple with a heliocentric model, and having to break all the rules of Kepler's, because all my original models broke all Kepler's rules, because I just thought they must be total bullshit, because you couldn't allow for this. And then when you start realizing it, like I say, all of your major players all have different perihelion points, everything from Jupiter, then to to Uranus, and then to Neptune, and then to Pluto, all being given different perihelion points, meaning that they're assuming that the sun is moving in a different direction because your perihelion point is the front edge of what you're going round, or the perigee point, the front edge of something coming round the Earth, which is the Earth's frontal edge. So when you're talking about the perihelion point of something, or the perihelion closest point to our sun, you're talking about its front edge. And if every different player has been given a front edge, then you can never have a forward motion. You've got a static. Think about energy. Think about the forward motion. Think about Einstein and supposedly his theory. In 1908, I think it was, they said, they couldn't see any of the planets behind and stars behind the sun during a total solar eclipse, and this was proof to Einstein's theory of relativity. That was Einstein, and it got repeated in 1916. And they tried to do the whole thing again during a total solar eclipse in 1916. and couldn't repeat what Einstein had done in 1907, 1908, where he said, "Oh, the reason you can't see any of the planets behind the sun is because that means that it's because the sunlight has the gravity of the sun has pulled them in. They're there, but you're not seeing the relative picture because of gravity. It could also be that they're not there. They weren't there because the whole model was incorrect, because we were trying to put the sun, which is one of the lightest things, in the centre of all this thing. It's hydrogen going into helium. It's not super heavy. So I just thought I'd come back to that and just remind you of the kind of like the lineage of my model, because Nassim Haramein's model, this idea of things moving up and down their axis, to explain that he said that the planets don't orbit the sun, as in the Earth doesn't orbit the sun, it orbits wherever the sun orbits. As if everything's trailing behind the sun, and so everything's basically orbiting whatever the sun's orbiting, and but that isn't actually what's happening. But it's a great way of helping you connect to the universe and your big cosmic correction. That's why I believe he's done that, because he knows a lot about astronomics, but it's an interesting window to get you into this idea of interconnectivity and kind of our connection. But that's not how it's done. But back to this incredible gentleman and his 138-year idea of a model. That we keep having these resets, and that we've had this massive reset where before we had all this incredible technology, and something's happened to humanity. We've all been hijacked, potentially. I mean, his analogy is that he's found this kind of this evidence that in this our current God requires us to be God-fearing. Everything's about God-fearing. This massive apocalypse that's going to enact upon us, and it's all about God-fearing. And he finds all this evidence to this point of our past where we were God-loving, and we were connected to this cosmic, utterly amazing connection, and he charters this. And I'm talking about this idea that, because of what I wrote about laughing gas and about we approach this wall and nothing gets past this wall, and I discovered this, what I call this fifth dimension, this higher realm that we can all connect to, but it's a peace realm. And there's this other realm, this fourth dimensional, lower, kind of lower astral realm, that we can also feed into. And they're very individual realms. They're your kind of private realms, and these realms can get attacked. Our fourth dimensional realms, we can invite entities into these realms through great trauma. And these entities can this is where they invade for me, and I kind of feel that a lot of what he's saying is helping me connect the dots. I'm not trying to, everyone's got their window on this. Everyone's got their window on this. It's like, for me, I'm understanding that this fourth dimensional realm gets shut down through this process. And when it gets shut down, it's really what's happening is it's all being transferred to a high realm. It's already been created. All your best has already been created in a high realm. But all of that stuff you're moving into a high realm. We're all moving into the fifth. We're all moving into all this higher stuff, but we're coming out of our individual realms and we're merging, if you like. All our souls are merging into a single realm, a single fifth. Those that are ready to ascend into that. We're from that. We are that. Now, we've all created that over eons. We've all been evolving into that. That's the big story that's happening here. But the other story that's happening here is that the fourth dimensional realms is being shut down, and so anything that is in the fourth dimensional realm, that is habitating the fourth dimensional realm, is being forced into the third dimension, is being forced into the physical. And so a lot of our ego aspects that have been feeding off this realm to build fourth dimensional realms, that they have been the invasive ego aspect, that part that has invaded humanity and this world, but more humanity, that is being forced in now. That's the big process that's going in now, and many of us are becoming our fourth dimensional tyrants right now. They're being forced into the third, being forced into this karmic realm. They're terrified to be here. They're terrified to be in a karmic realm. They desperately want the walls of this world that you would never seemingly be able to touch to be blown open, and for this realm to be destroyed, and then go to another fourth dimensional space and invade that, then come to a third dimensional realm, which for them is equivalent to hell, because everything comes back on them. Everything comes back on them. And the reason I wrote Laughing Gas was, I was told you approach the wall and nothing gets past it that is of war, and it was all based on this vision of seeing Europe being Britain being used as the Trojan horse to break up the European alliance and feed Europe into a war against Russia. And the only thing that could save it from this war with Russia was this technology that was being fed into it. And we'd be forced into these free trade deals to get access to this technology that would be the only thing that could save us, and everything would be dragged into it, and it would be this war that would be used to lower the vibration. We'd be thinking we'd be getting technology, but actually all we'd be doing is driving the world into war and drawing in the most catastrophic effects on ourselves that would bring about either the complete collapse of humanity or the destruction of this world. And ultimately, the destruction of this world is the destruction of the fifth, of all that creates, if you like, the heavenly realm, has to exist in the third first. It has to come and take this form before, you can't just go and incarnate in the fifth dimension. You have to come in and you have to build everything that you wish to find in the fifth. To inhabit that space, you have to build it yourself. This is where we come and build our castles in the sky. And we can make them as fantastic as we wish, but we have to exist in the third before we can become architects of the fifth. We have to create it here. All of that has to be created here. That's why you have to be so busy in what you're creating, and focus so much on for me, I'm in the fifth. I'm building the stars right now. In the fifth, I'm building the stars right now, and the massive connection that my world has to the stars right now, and the beings and myself have to the stars. This is my opportunity of connecting to the cosmos and cosmic beauty. Connecting to cosmic beauty, and by connecting to cosmic beauty, you see, without motion. I was going to talk about Einstein. I was just not talking about how, the deception that was given to you by Einstein. This idea that the planets weren't there, and this was proof of relativity, but it could have just been proof that the planets weren't there. And there was something else going on, that everyone needed to rethink the plan. But actually, E equals mc squared. Energy equals mass times c squared. C, the constant velocity of light. So c is movement. And we've taken away movement in our model. We none of you, I guarantee you don't know which way your sun is moving. And I guarantee you, I can tell you which way your sun's moving. It's moving out on the ecliptic towards the 21st of December. That is its forward motion. And we are also moving. That is our forward motion as well. As we go round the sun, we are also locked into that same forward motion going round the Milky Way. And unless you can get your head around what that symbol really means, the big planet X, our sun, and this big red dwarf planet with its planets. And unless you can give this whole thing motion and bring motion into this, you can't you can't energize. Your manifestation on this planet. If you cannot energize this, Einstein was right in that. It was energy equals mass moving as fast as it can, squared. The movement of this system is so important in this whole story. And so if we come back to this 1902 point, ironically he talks about this this other chap, and I'm just trying to remember if I can find out which guy it was. Charles Fort. That's, I think, believe the name I was looking for. It might not be. Did I get that right? Yeah, Charles Fort. I'm sure he just put the this guy, ironically, he's fascinated by history, and he charters he charters history going back from 1597 up to 1902, and finds 1902 to be the most fascinating time, 1902, 1903 to be the most fascinating times, and or 1900, maybe it could have been 1901 to 1902, but I found it so interesting because he started this from and he said that the most amazing time was like in that kind of 1902, 1903. It's just like everything with all the dust that came down, the red dust that just in massive volumes beyond. I had no idea, but it fits exactly in with all the timings that we've seen this thing fly by. It fits in exactly to the point, and of course it affects August as well, because what comes in February, August comes out in that kind of, it comes in over here and it shoots out in this kind of August position over here. So you get two kind of points, or it comes in over here and it goes out there, and it's very it is a big thing to kind of like to get your head around. It really is, and that's why I've had to do this. And this model needs so massively overlapping. And oh, guys, I tell you, it's when I saw what he was posting about this guy, but I thought it's so mad that he started this from 1597, because the first of all the variable stars, and he talks a lot about variable stars in this, the first of all variable stars, the first of all dwarf planets we've ever discovered, 1597. Ironically, you add 84 years to 1597, you come to Galileo's big prediction, 1681, where he's kind of saying, "Oh, it's that thing that twin tail object it's Halley's Comet," and then a month later, you get the next flyby, just swept under the carpet. And you come later, you come to obviously Uranus, 84-year orbit, and Neptune 2 times 84, Pluto 3 times 84, and it'd be interesting to see. It would be interesting to see this. What Jason might think of this this big 1800-year model. Like I say, I found 262, the day, 3 days of darkness, earthquakes all across Asia, all across Europe, all across Africa. The downfall of the real downfall of the Roman Empire. Everything fell over, everything got destroyed, just as Jesus had predicted. And suddenly, they're fleeing Rome. The Romans are fleeing Rome, and they go to Constantinople, and they form Christianity. And so this God-fearing faith, and of course that's when this calendar was created. And well, it was created after this. This was the kind of the reformation of the Roman Empire in the form of the Catholic Church as a belief system, as a God-fearing belief system. But what they were really creating were this fourth dimensional realm, our astral realms, that were being invaded by something other, to use as it's like another heaven. It's like a heaven. It's like a lower vibration heaven that they've controlled. That's been controlled through this whole system, and through beliefs. That's what's been happening. Is the human Earth astral realms have, these timings aren't. The ratio of this round, but obviously this is all just ballpark here, But I found 262. Like I say, we just say the Goths came and sat Rome, but I found 262 by accident. I found it by accident. I found it by mathematics, should I say, accident. But yeah, it was. You'll see the video. A miracle has just occurred, or something, years ago, about 2018, when I found the whole ratio, and I'd worked it out, and I was at 274, and of course I couldn't find the 3 days of darkness. I'd often look for one day if there were 3 days of darkness, and then I'd worked out that I was 12 years out, and I'm minus the 12 years from the 274, and I came up with the 262, and found it in the Edinburgh Encyclopedia of old, and I couldn't believe it when I found it. I found that date through mathematics. and it corroborated with everything, and it gave me the alignment, and it fitted in. It meant that Jesus would have been, around about here, seeing a star coming in Galileo's time. What would have been his equivalent to Galileo's time before? Okay, Jesus would have been like Galileo, and then Jesus' predictions finally come through. This is our exact same flybys that occurred in 262. This is what's going in right now. These are the big flybys that are going on. Literally, you've got two flybys. You've got the pair coming in, and you've got this Europa coming in. You've got two flybys back to back, just like you did last year. And this is going to be the same, because it has to go via us to go past us. These twin tails have to go via us to get past us, which means they're going to be very similar to what happened in 1902. That's what we've got coming in, and there's no way of getting around it. Take care, lovely people.